Welcome to the Dusty Muffins, where menopause meets sisterhood and strength. We're three menopause specialists coming together to laugh, share, and empower you through the wild ride of menopause and perimenopause. Whether you're curious, confused, or just looking for real talk, you're in the right place. We're here to answer your burning questions, educate, and advocate, all with a dash of humor and a lot of heart. So pull up a chair and join the conversation. Before we dive in, please remember, while we're doctors, we're not your doctors. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. We encourage you to partner with your own medical clinician to address your unique health needs. This is the Dusty Muffins. I'm Dr. Rebbecca Hertel. I'm a board-certified osteopathic family medicine physician and a Menopause Society certified practitioner. I have a private telemedicine practice, and I see patients in several different states.
I am Dr. Aoife O'Sullivan, a board-certified family physician and Menopause Society certified practitioner, and I see patients through my telemedicine practice here in Oregon and Washington.
I'm Dr. Hart Kress, a board-certified women's health nurse practitioner and menopause certified practitioner, and I see patients via telemedicine in several states as well.
Kacy Fleming, MA, is a workplace well-being strategist, TEDx speaker, and founder of the Fuchsia Tent, LLC, a platform dedicated to helping midlife women and organizations thrive together. With over 20 years in the biopharmaceutical industry, she has led initiatives on employee well-being and mental health, future workplace design, and compassionate dialogue and leadership. As head of global well-being at a Fortune 500 biopharmaceutical company, Kacy designed strategies that improved employee engagement and retention, earning her multiple industry awards. She's an organizational psychologist, known for her thesis on the impact of flexible work on well-being. Now, through the Fuchsia Tent, she is redefining how organizations support midlife women in the workplace. A frequent keynote speaker and advisor to C-suite executives, human resource and total rewards leaders, and health tech startups, Kacy's insights on future of work trends, leadership, and well-being have been featured in top business and well-being publications. Her website is kacyfleming.com and thefuchsiatent.com. Instagram is KCA_Fleming and at the Fuchsia Tent.
All right. And do you want me to start this off? I can start this off for sure. So we've got Kacy Fleming here with us. Thank you so much for joining us today on a Sunday evening. I don't know where you are, but it's gloomy here. So I'm trying to brighten up everything. And we are going to talk about menopause in the workplace. But before all that happens, we were just talking about what Kacy was doing before she got on with us. And so we definitely need to know a little bit about that.
Kacy has crabs. And we want to know more.
And lots of them.
Tell us about your crabs, Kacy.
They're the prehistoric crabs.
I do. Yes, I know. This sounds so scandalous, and really it's not all that scandalous. So I live in Salem, Massachusetts, which most people think of as home of the witch. But it is also home of Boston Beach. People don't think of Salem and beach. They think of Salem and witch, and it's both. And so right at the end of my street, we have this great little HOA beach that's for the neighborhood. And my husband and I were walking the dogs and we saw horseshoe crabs mating, but not like two of them, like throngs of them. And apparently this happens a couple times a year. So yeah, in the hood, we have crabs. Personally, I do not have crabs, and there are no crabs in the house, but there are crabs.
And no crabs got hurt.
No crabs were hurt in the making of this premature conversation, whatever was happening, but we saw a lot of crabs. Yes.
You said they're pretty violent in their mating.
It was surprising. It was, there were thruples there. I'm not going to lie. There were all sorts of crabs trying to displace other crabs. There were crabs being driven into the sand. It was terrifying.
Like head down.
I felt like I was witnessing something that I should be Like, I was like, honey, I feel like we're on Law and Order SVU, like crab
Right.
edition. This is not comfortable for me. I should be reporting this. But who would
Cover
I
the
report
dog's
that to?
eyes. Don't let them see.
Don't know. But you documented it. You got
I
video
did. I
evidence.
did. I
Post
have
it
some
later on
video.
Instagram. Mhm.
I cannot wait. I cannot
So
wait.
everyone, after this, go check out Kacy's Instagram from today.
Yes.
It'll be back
Watch
at the
At least for the crabs.
I know. I cannot
Yes.
wait. Cannot wait.
Oh man, I love
goodness.
it.
Now
We have the same
tell us a
chickens
little
and
bit
eat,
about your real job.
Yes. Now let's go
Yes.
into
Yes, I am not an amateur biologist of any sort, a marine biologist. I am just a wildlife enthusiast. But no, I am a organizational psychologist, a global well-being expert, and the founder of the Fuchsia Tent, which is a workplace and individual women's menopause platform that's really designed to provide simplicity, clarity, access, and support for all. So while I do both workplace well-being and workplace menopause support, I have a consumer arm where I take care of women as well because I needed support when I was going through it, and so many women need support.
So
Oh,
are
yeah.
organizational psychologists always in the workplace, or how do you become an organizational psychologist who brings menopause into the workplace? Like, where do you come from?
Not a family
not
of
from
horseshoe crabs.
not from crabs.
Listen to the interview earlier. If this didn't make it, that's going to be really strange for you. I am so okay with that. I came from workplace well-being, which is a function that sits in human resources. The goal not being cute things like yoga and like, crystals, though I love all those things. And yoga is a very beneficial practice. I don't mean to call that cute and make light of it. But when we talk about well-being, we really talk about health equity, workplace equity. We talk about how people feel and their jobs. You've probably heard so much talk about work-life balance. I hate that terminology. I prefer life-work alignment because
That.
Ooh, I
we
like
we
that.
live first, we work second, and we never have 50-50. It's always aligned. So in kind of doing all of that work, there's a lot of change management and kind of pieces that go along with the programs that you're putting into place. And so the formal process is what they call IO psychology, or industrial organizational psychology. And so if you think about the way that a therapist works with humans, right, and diagnoses kind of what may be going on with that individual or those individuals, works through exercises and helps to kind of restructure things in their lives. That's what an organizational psychologist does for businesses. You kind of come in and you do assessment and you see what's really happening within the organizations and where support is needed. And when it comes to menopause, I think we can all agree that there is a lot of support needed, especially for midlife women. And one of the stats I love to bring up, because so many people have heard it, but I think it brings it full circle, is that Mayo Clinic did a study. And what that study showed was untreated, right? So unsupported midlife women lead to $1.8 billion in lost productivity due to retention issues, attrition, days missed, things like that. And then when you add in the healthcare costs, it's $26.6 billion. And that's a US number.
Mm-hmm.
If we look globally, it's $150 billion annually. And that really sets us up to be looked at as a problem. And midlife women are not a problem to be solved. We are the solution businesses didn't know they needed. And that's what I'm here to talk about with businesses.
Oh, I love that approach.
Yes. So you're really just telling them, hey, this is how you prevent loss, by taking care of your employees that are going through midlife.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, you have to support them. You have to make sure that, they love their jobs. They don't want to leave. They want promotions. And here is how to maintain that and support them so that they continue to do those things.
And what does that look like, Kacy? How does that work?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Right now, it doesn't look like much. Only about 10% of the organizations in this country, sometimes upwards of 18%, you hear, depending on the study, currently have policies to support midlife women. And there are other instances where, in a sense, companies may be over-indexing, right? Where they're really heavily focused on menopausal women, which can create more stigma, right? Because we're dealing with ageism and sexism combined. They're deeply steeped into how we work. You know, we've all been told to soldier on, suck it up, all of these things, which are really just code for suffer in silence. And when we over-index on these data points and midlife women being a challenge, that sets us up for failure. And so I think what we talk about at the Fuchsia Tent is pretty simple. It's a 3H framework. It's how I try to think about it as simply as possible. It's really what midlife women, if you ask them in the workplace what they want, what they say. And that first H is healthcare. So the very best benefits that you can afford. So if you're a big employer and you have a huge population and a big budget for well-being, get a third-party telehealth solution that does full service reproductive health and has menopause experts and everything. If you can't afford that, that's great. Still, there are options like the Fuchsia Tent, where there's a lot of information and education that can be imparted and learned at a much lower price point. And then when we go to that second H, that's help. And so while we don't want to try to treat people and leaders like they should be menopause experts, which can be very daunting, especially if your job is in like finance or data or IT, and suddenly you're thinking like, oh, now I've got to know this too. We want to ensure that leaders can have these conversations in a way that's not terrifying for them, it's supportive, and that they're asking the individual what support looks like for them. They're not taking it on themselves and trying to solve. Like, can you honestly, ladies, imagine in the throngs of a hot flash having a man tell you like, oh, are you going through menopause? Let me tell you that menopause is the one day after that. You'd be like, oh my God, stop talking, right? So support, but not solve, right? And then that third H is something that I know this group, we can all agree on, which is the importance of HRT access and non-hormonal therapy access. That doesn't mean that you have to take these things. That doesn't mean that you need to get a prescription or you're broken. That means, especially for HRT and a lot of the vasomotor symptom drugs, they are pennies on the dollar. They are generic. They are tested. They are old Dusty Muffins, but they are good Dusty Muffins, and companies need to dust them off and use them as solutions. And when they don't provide access, it's a huge miss. So the 3 H's, healthcare, help, and HRT and non-hormonal therapy access.
Yeah. And, you know, Kacy, I would add to that H, though it doesn't really fit in, but when we're talking about what employers can offer is access to weight loss medications, because that's determined
Totally.
Oh my gosh.
whether or not you
Yes.
have that benefit. And, you know,
they've clamped
women
down on
who
that.
are overweight, you know, it affects your confidence. You develop other comorbidities. As you age, you add on more and more medications, with 60% of women on at least one medication between 40 and 60. And, you know, most on 2 to 4. And, you know, when we're talking to patients about menopausal hormone therapy, you know, it always, not always, but many times the conversation of weight loss comes in, and I send them back to go see it. And I'm sending them back to see if their insurance covers it. But I think maybe what women don't realize is that's a decision made by your human resources department.
Yeah, benefits for sure. Total rewards. And it's so important that you said that. I was actually recording something today about this to put up on Instagram, and I held back today. I will share it. It's not a shyness. It's just, I think we need to be honest. When we're already dealing with ageism and sexism, there's also weight bias. And that is very well documented in culture. There's a lot of studies that show that women who weigh less are more likely to be promoted, all of these things. And this is in what we call implicit bias. Now, I'm sure there are definitely people who have explicit bias, right? Which they would say something cruel or be cruel. But a lot of us have an implicit bias, which you hear all the time. I take Zepbound. I'm very proud to say that I take it. I've lost 17 pounds. I could not lose that weight without it. I did everything but, stand on my hand and like eat grapefruit through a straw all day to lose weight. And nothing had worked. And I'd never had that problem. And the medication was extremely helpful for me. And I think what's so interesting is I sat in a pedicure chair and the woman said to me, and I quote, "Oh, you took the easy way out. You cheated." And I thought to myself,
wow.
Wow.
You know nothing about the medication or the problem.
Or anything that deals with women or weight.
Let's talk about that though, because here's the thing. The average person, a lot of them that have never dealt with insulin sensitivity or resistance, believes that. They honestly believe, people that have never struggled with weight, that it's just laziness or that you overeat, and they don't understand the hormone cortisol situation that you all talk about every day. And so that belief system carries on in the workplace, right? Like, oh, she's just let herself go because she's in a senior position, or, oh, I can tell she's just career. She's just driven and she doesn't care what she looks like. Oh, let's put her out to pasture. And it sucks, ladies. Like, let's be clear. We should not be talking about this in a workplace conversation at all, because what we look like has nothing to do, and what we weigh has nothing to do with how talented we are or how capable we are. But that is not reality of bias in the system. And we all have to work with and through that bias.
Yeah. And that's society's too. It's what we see in Hollywood. It's what we see on TV. It's what we, so it's not even, and none of that's correct, but it truly is. That is what that's what they're seeing every single day, right? When they're watching, anything, and TikTok and social media and all of those things as well. And so, we can teach it and educate, and we know better, and we're, teaching, our students and residents and children and whatnot, but we can only do so much when I feel like, everywhere else we look is working against us, right? Ageism, you're getting older. Oh, well, then we're not worth anything. And you certainly can't be pretty at 48 years old, or, 50 years old, or 60 years old, all of those things. It's our society.
Even in medicine, there's weight bias.
Oh yeah.
You see it all the time. And there are so many doctors still out there who will say, oh, calories in equals calories out. If you're gaining weight or you're not losing weight, it's because of calories. And there's such a deep misunderstanding of, none of us really received very good training on that either.
No. We should not have to have a specified obesity medicine board. That is healthcare. I mean, that should be part of, any family medicine, internal medicine, training.
Yeah. And the expense is really a challenge. I think one of the things that I work with companies that are willing to go there and that want full assessment and evaluation of their program is this reimbursement factor that we're all talking about, making sure these drugs are covered, making sure they're covered in a place where people can get access to them. I think, I'm not here to debate pharmaceutical company and a insurance company's background. That was my old job, and thankfully I don't do that anymore. But what I will say is, when you have a BMI cutoff of 30 for a lot of these drugs, that doesn't necessarily cut it, right? Like, I was really feeling my worst, and I missed it by 2% on the BMI, and my doctor's like, the great news is you're far from qualifying. I'm like, that's not great news. That's horrible news. I feel like garbage. My numbers are still good. I'm not comfortable in my body. I'm somebody that's, for my job, is on TV, on stage, talking in front of people, putting clothes on, and I can't fit in my pants. Like, this is not okay. And so I just think I'm glad you brought that up, Christine, because yes, it's not just hormone replacement therapy or these non-hormonal therapies related to vasomotor or mental health symptoms. I think it's a really interesting point, and something that I don't think workplaces consider a lot, because we don't even talk about it a lot, are all the symptoms that come with menopause. And the fact that in Perry, for so many women, myself included, it really started more as a mental health diagnosis, where I went from being, this anxious, chronically anxious, overachiever, bubbly, vivacious, person, to complete anhedonia, like no joy, no understanding of what that meant, thinking that I was broken and wanting to step off my roof. And I don't say that lightly. I say that because the more I've talked about it, the more women tell me that this is their reality. And so I know that the numbers that we're seeing are significantly underestimating just how dysmorphizing or painful, I don't know if I just made up a word, dysmorphic we become. If I did, it sounds like a really good word. Dysmorphizing menopause is where you look in the mirror one day, and it's not even visual. It's not like you look in your face and you're like, oh my God, I look so old. It's like what you're feeling inside and what you're seeing, or feeling inside and feeling outside, is so different. And you just can't make sense of it. And it feels like breaking in two. And that is so troubling for all people, especially people working and having to put on a brave face and go into an office every day. Mothers with kids having to parent, mothers with aging, parents having to parent them too. It's maddening. It's a maddening time.
And then when they go to the doctor doesn't know anything about menopause, starts them on an antidepressant medication, which can be life-saving for a lot of people. But unfortunately, women going through perimenopause, the answer for most of them is hormones, not antidepressants, although they do work very well together. And then what happens? More weight gain, because antidepressants are not known for their weight loss effects. Most one is. But and then we end up with all this polypharmacy. You're on something for sleep, you're on something for depression, you're on something for anxiety. Now your cholesterol's going up, your weight's going up, so is your blood pressure.
Blood pressure,
going up. And so we're just sticking Band-Aids onto trying to stop this fire hose, when really, if we had the education and the knowledge to help women before it got to that stage, we could avoid all of this.
Yeah, I say you just called my nickname out. Polypharmacy is like, if I had a special name or a foreign name at this stage in my life, it would be polypharmacy, because I have had to take so many medications to feel better. And you know what? There's also bias about that. And I'm here to say that we have to do what we have to do to feel better, and suffering and silence is not okay. So while I totally hear you, Aoife, and your point was not, shaming on that, there are so many symptoms to menopause that it is almost impossible to tackle. And one of the most debilitating ones for working women, people in the workplace, is brain fog. And I don't know about y'all, but there is a brain fog time of the day before I got on testosterone. And that was like 4 p.m. Where were my keys? Probably in the refrigerator. Why was I in a room? I don't know. And if I had a meeting, I would lose my train of thought multiple times. And the first time that happens for a woman in the workplace, you make a cute joke. If it was important, I'll remember, it'll come back to me.
Right.
When it happens 3 times in a meeting, and then it happens at the next meeting, you start to doubt your competence or your ability to do something that has been your whole life's work. And maybe you're the breadwinner, and now suddenly your ability to provide for your family is called into question. What are you supposed to do? Say to your leader, you know what, give me that promotion anyway. I can't remember anything if it's like 3 p.m., but promote me. It's debilitating. And so that is why we need to have support in the form of the 3 H's, which include weight loss therapy, so that women can get what they need and don't feel like they have to call themselves out on a continual basis. Otherwise, we're going to keep seeing midlife women who are their most entrepreneurial, innovative, brilliant selves leaving the workplace.
And I think too, you know, when you talk about leaders, you know, when you're not sleeping through the night and your anxiety is, you know, going through the roof, you're not as resilient. You're not as good as a leader. And, you know, we talked earlier about, you know, screening early for symptoms. So, you know, women, you know, can understand that, you know, they are perimenopausal, they're menopausal,
Right.
and then really understand how does that impact the people around you. I know when I was a leader, when I look back on it and I didn't realize that I had those symptoms, I was not patient. I was not flexible. I would, you know, I would send out emails or, you know, I believed every email every day. But I would have a thought and I was so afraid I would lose the thought. I would text message someone or I would email message someone and not even think about it. Well, it's 7:05. And I'm like looking back on it and I'm like, well, no wonder they were like, she's always working. Yes, I'm always working. That is true. And I didn't expect them to respond to me, but the anxiety that they were feeling about the fact that I was feeling the need to get that out, but I was feeling the need to get it out because I was afraid I was going to lose it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think, you know, that female leaders often can alienate their workforce, you know, because they're not aware of their actions, which are a result of some of their menopausal symptoms and the impact it has on the people that work for them.
Well, I think the important part of that, aside from great self-awareness on your part, so kudos
A
to
lot of
you for
reflection. I'm like, shit.
even if it's
Fixed.
yeah, but even if it's too late, you realize, right? I mean, look, we're human, and there was no information when we were going through it, and no one was talking about it, so we weren't having this conversation. It's not like you were not listening for it. It's that it didn't exist really. And so right, and so at the same time, I'm gonna reframe that in the way that I look at this a little bit.
Here's a
And
psychologist. She did this to me the other day.
She did. Let me reframe. I was like, who?
I can't help but reframe that, like, there's a couple of things to say, right? Number one, if you had had support, like we've been talking about in the beginning of this conversation, you would have had the awareness that this is going on. And if you had appropriate support, so someone who did kind of organizational design in there talking, one of the things that you would know to do is to track when you're your best, right? And track when you're your worst and try to work flexibly around that. That doesn't mean that every organization is going to offer flexible work and kind of where you work and whatever. But if you know that there are specific times in your day your energy has changed and we were working together, we would map your energy so that you were having your meetings with people at very specific times in order to ensure you were at your best for them and they were not seeing you when you were not at your best. We also would say things like, hey, listen, I'm going through something right now where I can't necessarily remember everything all the time. And so sometimes I'm going to send you an email or a text and it may come at a weird time. Ignore it. Look at it the next day. Like, don't think of my behavior as something I want you to emulate. Just know that I'm doing it because I can't remember, not because I expect you to respond. Now, that's not perfect, right? In a perfect world, we don't ping people in the evenings or on weekends, but it's not a perfect world. That's why I don't talk about work-life balance, because it's a bunch of crap. I talk about life-work alignment because it's realistic. And we all have different circumstances we're working in. So I think it's just those simple things that reframe that. And then the individual working for you would be like, oh yeah, my boss can't remember anything. She's awesome though. And she tells me not to reply to her until my next working day, right? And then it's not anxiety provoking. So, you know, I struggle because then that's women still blaming themselves for how we behave. I'm not advocating for being abusive or, you know, being irritable and snapping at colleagues, but there's always something you can do to kind of walk those behaviors back. We're not perfect. And so you can also say like, hey, listen, I was really short yesterday for a variety of reasons. I haven't been sleeping well. And sometimes I'm a little ill-tempered, like the sea bass and Austin Powers, right? And it's not you, it's me, right? I'm ill-tempered. And I apologize if that came out at you. I'm really working on it. And nobody's going to be like, oh, what a
Right. And
right?
apology
Like,
goes a really long way. I mean, because
yes,
I feel like I struggled with brain fog like all day. It wasn't a time thing for me at all, and it was really scary, and it was just really scary. And to the point where I'm sure, like a lot of women, you're like, do you have a brain tumor? Is something going on?
totally.
I need medication. Like, I cannot get through a patient chart without reading it 3 or 4 times, like 3 or 4 times. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you, woman? And so and I told, all of my staff that were just so lovely, you guys have to just double check my work when I am doing result notes, or when I'm doing, phone call notes, or if I'm ordering something and it doesn't make sense, please send it back and be like, is this what you meant? And I'm going to be like, no, good catch. Thanks. And I think A, we're human. B, I am in a hybrid model. And so I still work an insurance-based model and have my own private practice. And so, in that insurance space, you are going through, how many result notes in a day, right? And so, and how many patient panel. And so when you're first struggling to be organized, I mean, I'm an organized person. And when I first started going through perimenopause, there was just no organization at all. So I wasn't knowing where I was starting, stopping, where to finish anything, if I could finish anything, and let alone not comprehend what I was reading. But an apology goes a long way. I feel like, just saying, you know what, shoot, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lose it. I know I've just been batty a little bit, and, or, and then buy them some coffee and some lunch.
Free food always is great.
Yeah. I mean,
Vulnerability,
yeah, it's
you
a
were
big
vulnerable.
thing when,
Um,
and even just thanking for, your staff for just keeping you flowing and working. And I can't do my job without them. So it's so important, just sometimes just that, right? Thanking them with just some lunch or whatever. And so on more stressful weeks, then it might be lunch and Starbucks in addition to that. Just like, thank you for dealing with this crazy woman in this office. Struggling with mood swings, low energy, weight changes, or feeling dismissed about your hormones? You're not crazy. You're in midlife. I'm Dr. Rebbecca Hertel, board certified osteopathic physician and certified menopause practitioner. And at Osteopathic Midlife Health, I offer personalized concierge telemedicine for women in multiple states, helping you navigate perimenopause and menopause with expert care focused on hormones, weight, sleep, libido, and more. My approach blends evidence-based medicine with a deep understanding of longevity and precision in midlife health, because this phase isn't just about getting by, it's about thriving for decades to come. So visit www.osteopathicmidlifehealth.com and let's build your roadmap to lasting vitality.
yeah, I think that goes for everybody. And especially in midlife, we're usually at the peak of our careers. That often means that we're managing big teams. This is a great opportunity for a couple things. Delegation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we as women tend to, I'm going to speak for myself. I can't speak for all of us, but we love to take on more than we
Oh,
need to,
so hard to
because
delegate.
we've always had to, right? And when we don't delegate in midlife, we pay more
Mm-hmm.
dearly than we pay at any other time, because we just have so many things going on. And it's also an opportunity for businesses to create that mentorship perspective. Now, I know you're probably thinking, if you've been listening to the rest of this, why would I want some snarky, forgetful, whatever woman mentoring anybody? And here's the reality. We've all, I'm sure, read The Menopause Brain by Dr. Lisa Mosconi. We know that brain fog is temporary for most people. We know that once we get care and support, which is why the 3 H's are so important, this can be the best chapter of our lives. That's why we're here on the Dusty Muffins having this conversation, because we're all having this great moment in our lives. And I think it's really important for the workplace to understand and for leaders to understand. I'm not here saying support people who should go to the pasture, like everybody thinks about us, and just let us act however we act and whatever. Like, no, what I'm saying is, if you support midlife women, period. That doesn't mean perfect support. It means if you even did anything, you're increasing job satisfaction, you're increasing loyalty, you're reducing attrition, you're reducing absenteeism. For every $1 you spend on workplace menopause support, it returns $3 to $4 on healthcare costs. I cannot think of another metric in well-being or benefits that has that ROI. And then on top of that, we know from Lisa Mosconi, thank God, that we become more innovative, more resilient, better problem solvers, better leaders, better complex thinkers. So when you're supporting midlife women at work, you are investing in your future employees and your future mentors and your future leaders. Because I hear a lot of men talking about retirement these days, and I don't hear a midlife woman anywhere I know talking about checking out of her work parameter. This is when we're here to shine. We want to work. We're brilliant. We're smart, and we're badasses, and we should have the support we need to do the work that we were meant to do in this world. And I'm going to get off my soapbox now. Sorry. Thank you, ladies.
We just dropped a few mics.
Even for ourselves, if the three of us hadn't realized what was going on with us, may have left the workforce,
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't think you could have done it, right? I don't think that we
Remember,
could
I
have
quit.
done it. Yeah, Christine did.
I did too, Christine. You and I talked about this. I was like, this is not my dream anymore. Like, I don't know what's happening, but that is where I went to. And that is where data shows that most of us, or a lot of us, are going. 10% leave. I think that number is way underestimated.
Yeah.
33 to 43% consider it. I think that number is also underestimated. This is a time when if we don't get what we need, we're going to create something new for ourselves. And those businesses that don't give us what we need are losing our brilliance and our entrepreneurialism. We're going to take it elsewhere.
I know. If you want something done, ask a woman in midlife to do it for you. It's going to get done properly.
Totally. And quickly.
Yeah.
We do.
So to lose us from the workforce is a complete disaster.
It is. It is. And here's an interesting piece. So many people talk about AI. Everywhere you go, everyone wants to talk about AI. AI this, AI that. If we think about, I don't know if you all are big users of AI. I am a huge user of AI. I love it. And I've had to force that. And it is so helpful. But
it's really helpful.
But here's the thing.
All of that, time management.
Yeah. But when you're using AI in complex work, you have to have reviewers who understand all the aspects of that work before AI existed. You cannot take junior people who have no experience with transversal cooperation, who have some corporate speak that's in my brain. I don't even know what that word means, transversal cooperation, but you get my point. Like working across functions, you have all of these different jobs, roles that we've all had. We understand how to communicate, which a lot of the younger generations aren't going to have the same skill sets just because we're learning it in a different way. And we are the reviewers of the product of AI in complex work tasks. And so if businesses think AI is going to replace the genius of midlife women or midlife employees, they're sorely mistaken. AI is going to replace the tasks that are more junior, but understanding and reviewing is something that workers with more wisdom and experience are going to have to do. And it's just another reason to keep us around.
So how do you think women can best go about advocating for this gap in the workplace? Because we all know it exists almost everywhere.
100%. And even in companies where there is support, I get calls from women's groups who want me to come in and talk about this and what they can do. So it's a great question. Optimization, I'm going to give you some tactical stuff and some much less tactical stuff, but we'll start with the tactical. Optimization of environment. This is something that every employee can do. Save employees that wear a uniform. That falls on the system. And there needs to be structural change where women in midlife are wearing polyester uniforms. I understand that in some cases, midlife women are in clean rooms and things like that, and there's not a lot you can do because of hazmat or safety or other environments. But there's so many jobs. Like I always think of flight attendants wearing those polyester uniforms and those sweaters at 30,000 feet having a hot flash. Like, come on. So that is something workplace can do, but what women can do is ask for fans at the desk, and most companies will reimburse them. USB portable fans, they're very inexpensive on Amazon. Things like cooling towels, wearing a cardigan, making best friends with your facilities manager in an office. They are lovely people. And if you ask them to turn down the temperature, I've never met a facilities manager that I haven't befriended that hasn't either turned it down or up for me. So love your facilities managers. That is a hot take. And then we'll get a little more out of the tactical, right? It comes down to compassionate dialogue, and that works in both ways. These are not easy conversations to have. And you heard some examples earlier of kind of how I talk about menopause in the workplace, where I'm not naming my symptoms necessarily, because some women will name them and be like, oh my God, I'm having a hot flash, right? But some women are not comfortable with that, and that's okay. Some women don't want to talk about their insomnia or their brain fog because they're afraid it'll make them look not competent. So it's okay to say, like, for a variety of reasons, I haven't been remembering things as well as I used to, and there's nothing wrong with me medically, but, it would really help if I could do X, Y, and Z. So it's those dialogues, and how we go about that is prepare. This is not going to be an easy conversation for you. I don't care how comfortable you are. When you get in front of somebody that is not one of your girlfriends, and this has to do with your livelihood, it is uncomfortable. Practice, practice, practice. Practice with your friend, practice with your doctor, practice with your family member. Practice what you want to say. And when you're developing that, look at what is your solution, right? We would love to expect leaders to know what the company offers. They usually don't, if the company offers anything at all. So if the company does offer things, it's good to research kind of your benefits and your policy before you have that dialogue, so you know what you might want. It's also good to think about what is going to help you perform better. So Rebbecca, you gave a great example, which was having people kind of check your notes. That was a very vulnerable example. People might not be comfortable saying something like that. Good on you that you did, especially in medicine, because how important is it to make sure you get your documentation correct for patients? But asking for what you need, like, hey, what would be really great? I'm not sleeping well for a variety of reasons, but I perform much better when I can get up at 7:30 these days, because it just gives me that little bit more time to sleep. Are you okay if I start coming in and starting my day at 9? I'll work till 7 p.m. Asking for what you need for that's going to help you be more successful. Like, hey, I find that I'm getting great work done at 6 and 7 p.m. all of a sudden. That was never my time before. But you may get emails from me a little later. Just ignore them. That's my schedule and that's how I work. Or put a little tag in your signature line that says my hours are not your hours, right? We've all seen those. That is that compassionate dialogue. Now, on the flip side, we want leaders to model the same thing and to ask people, what does support for me look like for you, to not assume and be like, hey, I think you're like 45 and you look like you're sweating. Are you having a hot flash? Like, don't go there. Like, ask people
like, how do you make sure they're not feeling, singled out and embarrassed, and right. We don't want that either. So it's like, you're treading carefully. You want to support without singling out and making them feel vulnerable, more vulnerable than they already do. Right. Want the Dusty Muffins at your next event? We do panels, live podcasts, and talks that bring the heat, literally. Corporate, CME, or retreats, we've got you. So hit us up at thedustymuffins333@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at thedustymuffins.
Yep. And then on the far end of advocacy, we get into kind of policy, driving policy, working in ERGs and affinity groups to get rid of stigma, right? I think I think something, while I'm not a proponent of everybody talk about menopause, that's going to fix everything, right? Like, I don't believe that for 1 second. And I don't believe everybody wants to talk about it. And I don't believe all women want to talk about it. And that doesn't just mean working women. I think it's great that we understand it and we're educated about it and we have information about it. Everybody should have education about it. Whether or not you talk about it, that's a choice. But in affinity groups and employee resource groups, that is an incredible opportunity for women to have community in their workplace, to make friends with somebody who's going through it with you so you feel less alone. That's one of the places we really like to lean in with the Fuchsia Tent, is like an external ERG for companies that don't have them, to create a support network for women so they can kind of talk about it in a non-threatening way or get information and share information. But that's really kind of the three steps, if you will. There's that really tactical approach of, feeling better from a vasomotor symptom perspective or a time of work perspective, to the conversation piece, then to the policy and development piece.
That's awesome.
You've mentioned a couple times this Fuchsia Tent.
Yeah. Yes. What is that tent?
Shameless plug, tent? Right?
What is the Fuchsia Tent?
No, thank you for asking. The Fuchsia Tent was a fever dream of a very unhappy perimenopausal Kacy. Don't like talking about myself in the third person, makes me feel insane. But I really needed a place to get away from my partner, to get away from work, to get away from all of the things that were making me irritable, the things that made me feel not seen or othered. And so I had talked to my aunt, who is like a sister to me, and she said, you need a red tent. You've read the book. You need a red tent. And I was like, no, I need a Fuchsia tent. And that's where we started. But what we are is an education and community platform for midlife women and workplaces, designed kind of soup to nuts. So there's free resources, there's support for anybody. We have a host, you've seen them, of PDFs and things that are available for doctors to use with their patients, for people to use before they go see their doctors or nurse practitioners or PAs. We have a whole host of also the best, I believe, supplements, FDA approved medications, and telehealth providers in something called the Fuchsia List, which is also free for people, so that they have a third party curated list that they can look at for different resources. And then we have the community, which is kind of next level, where you get group coaching, you have experts, hopefully all of the Dusty Muffins. Well, I'm not going to say hopefully, you're all coming in at some point to talk about whatever you want to talk about and what you do brilliantly. But that's really a community where people can come to talk, or they can come to just learn. And then I have all of that workplace component, which is the 3 H's, how we put that together for organizations. And my mainstay is doing educational webinars. I do a ton of them for companies, where I come in and I talk about menopause in the workplace, from the business case for CEOs and executives to what is menopause, why am I going through this and what do I do about it? Of course, I keep it out of the deep dive into clinical. I kind of surface clinical unless I'm bringing a practitioner with me. But there's so many people that know nothing, that I feel like sometimes even saying that menopause is the one day after 365 days with no period is eye-opening for people. So we try to educate and do what we can.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so how, if companies want to work with you, how's the best way for them to connect?
Yeah. So 2 websites. So you can go to kacyfleming.com. That's my kind of workplace well-being consultancy, or the fuchsiatent.com. And as Christine knows, I'm going to be a bit profane with the spelling, because people struggle with spelling fuchsia. Think of the naughty word and take out the K and replace it with an H and then SIA. So FUCHSIA. So think fuchsia. Tent, the in front of that. So the fuchsiatent.com. It is a complex spelling. And at the Fuchsia Tent on Instagram, KCA, the 3 initials _ Fleming on Instagram and LinkedIn, Kacy Fleming, MA. And you can contact me any of those ways, all of those ways. I'd love to hear from you. And no, I did not just say that bad word. I spelled fuchsia the way that it's spelled. So.
Oh, we say that bad word.
We say it all the time, so you totally could have said
it.
Do not worry, workplaces. I will not spell it for you that way when I come into your building.
That's right.
I may, but I won't say it that way. I'll say it's like the bad word.
Where are you in the country, Kacy? What state?
I am in Salem, Massachusetts, with my bay and my horseshoe crabs. Yeah,
that's right.
Keep your
full circle. Full circle.
My afternoon brain fog.
I was like, we did talk about that, right?
With witches.
It was Salem witches, yes.
Salem is an amazing place. I don't know if you all have been, but you're always welcome in my house. It is a lovely place. I can always use 3 amazing witches to add to my coven.
Nice. We're definitely in, aren't we, girls?
The Dusty witches.
Hair colors are all a little bit different, so we would like make a good flock.
Yeah, we could be like on Charmed. Yeah.
Yes.
Power of 3.
We could just like
power of 4.
Mm-hmm. Power of 4.
Mm-hmm.
Change it a little bit. Get our Book of Shadows going. I just watched that with my girls. We watched all the seasons of it and we absolutely loved it. And then we moved on to Gossip Girl after that.
Little secret for you. I was in Charmed.
You were?
I was an actress. I was a waitress in the bar P3.
How do we not know that?
And so there's plenty of scenes with me. Like didn't talk. I wasn't like an extra, like a featured extra. So I would work in there frequently with my little tray and, do my thing.
As my girls say, they are going to crash out when I tell them that.
Well, I mean,
That's very cool, Kacy. Tell us about your background. What did you do before you started all this menopause and workplace work? And you were an actress. Tell us a little bit.
It's more what I didn't do. I mean, I'm a really odd duck, but it all makes sense. Like, it all makes sense to how I got here. But no, I started as an actress. Didn't like the inability for kind of lateral, like the better you got didn't mean the more work you got. And I did not enjoy that. I'm a very goal-driven human, and that was very frustrating to get better at something and not get work. And so then I moved to fashion and I got a degree in fashion merchandising and buying. And all I do is buy earrings and clothing and frocks for my house.
Frocks?
And I went to culinary school. Frocks, clothing, and dressing my house, all the things.
I love it.
And then I went to culinary school and I dropped out of that. I've been to school for business. I've been to school. What else have I been to school for? Organizational psychology. I managed to get through for fashion, business, and organizational psychology and some marketing. I've done pretty much everything.
When I meet people like you who've done so many things, you are the best to talk to. Like, to just go to the bar, get a drink, and sit and talk for hours. I just listen. I would want to know every single thing about what happened. Acting.
We live vicariously.
I would love it. Yeah, I can't wait for us to get together someday and have a proper chat. We did.
Yeah, I never realized how weird I was.
You're not weird.
No.
Oh no, I'm good with that. I accept it now.
A gem.
I thought everybody was weird like me, and then I started to realize as I aged that like most people didn't go to school for 7 things, and have bunches of different careers and whatever. So
you need to meet Rachel Frankenthal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who did go to school for 7 different things and was a Broadway actress. So,
yeah,
I love that.
Kindred spirit out there.
Yeah, I love that she succeeded where I failed. Can't wait to meet her.
She's a menopause, yay.
And she also said everything she did led her to this point.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that crazy?
I think I do think I know we've closed the podcast for the most part, but I do think it's a really important thing to note about midlife women is we have done all of these things, whether it was a straight path for someone where they knew what they wanted to be their whole lives, but you're literally at the peak of whatever that was. You are at mastery by the time you're in midlife. And if you're an odd duck like me and you've done 20 things, that kind of ladders up to what you have to offer the world. And that is such a gift. And it really is what makes midlife women so unbelievably special. And it's why I cannot stand to see women, you know, taking themselves out when we should be anteing up. And that is not to say that if you desire a retirement properly because you're sane and not like me, or, you know, you want to spend time with your grandkids, that that's not a positive choice too. But I want women to have that choice. I want them to think, I want to be in my career at the peak of it for the next 20 years when they're hitting 50. Or to think, I'm done with this, but I'm good with that because I'm ready to be grandma, or I'm ready to start another business, or I want the next best chapter. Christine, not where you and I were, where we were like, what's happening? I can't take this anymore. I think I want to go over here, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to pull the ripcord and plunge into the unknown. Yes, it turned out fantastically for both of us because we made it work, because midlife women make it work. But I'd rather people be able to kind of think through that before having to just like do that, you know?
I agree.
Yeah. And losing women with so much wisdom and so much experience is just a massive blow for any business or corporation or it's sad and unnecessary because we can avoid all of it.
100%.
Yeah.
No. Well, this has been amazing.
Yeah.
We've talked for hours.
So glad to have you. So glad we all connected in Miami. And
oh my gosh.
That was one of the greatest moments of my menopause life. My so-called menopause life. Can that be a TV show with Claire Danes starring and Jared Leto?
Oh, stop, Jared. Oh my God.
If you know Jared Leto, you're definitely in perimenopause. At least I think what was so great about that moment, ladies, is there are lots of different people in the metaverse, lots of different kinds of people. There's lots of different ways that it's talked about, and they're all good. I'm not going to say anything nasty about a human being. It's not my thing, but I've always been a little more brazen, a little more outspoken, a little more cursy and jokey and, you know, baughty. And when I met the three of you, I was like, oh my God, where have these people been? And like, how do who knew that there were Dusty Muffins and that I was actually one? And how come they didn't know about me? And oh my gosh.
Right?
But it was a moment, right? I hope you guys had the same moment.
We were just like,
but
how did we not know?
Awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
100%.
Yes.
We like people who fit into our world.
Yeah.
I find that, well, you're easy to fit in with. And honestly, I find the best people in my life I meet in midlife, and I meet in this way, where it's like, I guess when you're younger, you don't know. I wasted a lot of time not being a girl's girl when I was younger, and I regret that. I write about it periodically to kind of buyer beware young women who think they're guys, gals about the mistake there. You know, trying to be the cool girl or whatever. But in midlife, it's like I'm a heat-seeking missile for great people. Like I just literally know how to find my people. And when I see them, I'm not shy about it anymore. I'm not like, oh, I hope they like me. I'm like, no, I'm here. Like, I'm like the worst cold that you can't get rid of. Like, get ready. Get ready. You're going to need Valtrex for me to go away, right? Like, probably nothing against her. Like, I'm just saying, there's no cure for me, right? Like, I'm just here.
Love it.
You're not looking for a cure.
Nope, not at all.
So I hope not. That would be really sad for me.
Oh my gosh.
Not at all. I know. Awesome. I have friends who like kind of collect other friends. Like they just, it's very important to them is have as many friends as possible and I'm not even sure they're friends, maybe acquaintances. And I'm looking at it going, that seems exhausting. No, I just need my few people and then I'm happy, you know?
I'm the same way, but it takes me a while to realize, like, there are people I'll know immediately are my people, like you guys. And then there are people that I'll kind of think are my people, and I'll find out that they're really just business acquaintances or transactional people that are not my people. And that's painful. That's been a painful lesson.
That's
people
been a painful
are
lesson.
Not authentic. And the only association they want is how can they get to the next place.
But they're sneaky. They're sneaky. So I talked about this with Christopher, my PR guy, and he's like, I want you to write a series on this. I'm like, this doesn't really go with what I talk about, but I'll talk about it here at the Dusty Muffins. There is such a creature as a covert narcissist. And so while narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder,
we know some.
Is a very small percentage of the population. True narcissism, right? That really charming, pathologic, like people with the, with that diagnosed pathology, that's a small percentage. But there are people known as covert narcissists who are energy vampires, and they have a false vulnerability, and they prey upon people with light, and then they stomp on it. They stomp on it really well. And it's interesting. There is a lot of research on what they call vulnerable narcissism or covert narcissism. I know many of them.
And you can find them in the workplace.
You can find them anywhere. But I mean, the workplace is filled with, like anything else, unhealed humans, right? I mean, the world is filled with unhealed humans, and that is a structural issue in workplaces. In all seriousness, this is staggering. But I recently did research for a company looking to build a top tier leadership development program, and I'm helping them build it. And I remember when I was going through leadership development programs, they used to do psychological personality assessments for anybody who was going to become a leader. And so I wanted to check for this organization to see if that was still an okay practice, or that was something that was no longer allowed, or, there were people, and they do it, but they only do it, most of them, in the C-suite. And I'm like, so let me get this shit straight. Let me get this straight. You inflict these people on other people all the way up into the C-suite, where they're responsible for sometimes hundreds of thousands of people, and then you give them the personality test? Not until they're going into the C-suite.
And there's staggering data on who gets into the C-suite. Narcissists.
It is insane. And it's because we don't test. And honestly, we know, like, it's not funny. We know that 66% of people say their leader has more impact on their mental health than their providers or their spouse, right? We also know that 2/3 of people would take less pay for a better leader who treated them empathetically or compassionately. It's why I love doing my work, but it also is something that incenses me, because we're stuck in this position where a lot of our leaders haven't even been through leadership training. Like, aside from like the testing that they should have, they've never been trained. They're just like, here you are, now you get to deal with menopause, mental health. You don't care about people. You're just taking it because it's more pay. And it's like, oh my goodness. It's really why we're in this position.
When you ask people why they leave their jobs, invariably they'll say their boss was.
Oh, totally.
Supervisor or their boss has made their life so unlivable that they are leaving their job. That's the answer you hear over and over again.
Yeah, when I do conferences that are workplace conferences specifically, and I'm talking about life work alignment, or I'm talking about well-being, which is very often, I'll ask, raise your hand if you've worked for a toxic leader. And every hand in the room goes up every time I ask the question, and then everyone chuckles. And these are all well-being people. So most of them, because I'm usually speaking in rooms of like benefits or whatever, but some of the people that are laughing are also toxic leaders, right? Like, statistically, we've all had those behaviors. And Christine, you own some of yours, that you're not a toxic leader, but there were things that menopause brought out in you that were challenging for other people. We all can be those people. It's not like it's just covert narcissists or actual narcissists. Like, we all have the tendency of bringing our baggage or our worst selves to work, and being a leader is really recognizing that. And as soon as we figure it out, deciding whether or not we really want to lead people and deal with these things, or if we'd be better off being an individual contributor where we're just doing work but not responsible for other people's lives. Like, workplace suicide's a real thing. And unfortunately, in my career, I've known of, I can count them on two hands, but that's a lot of suicides to have known about that happened in the workplace.
Wow. Yeah, medicine has high rate of suicide as well.
And then you put menopause on that, and it's staggering.
Yeah. Well, they should just put us in charge, really, shouldn't they, of everything?
I mean, if we ran the world, it would be just better.
I was just thinking, there are so many countries in the world at the moment are being led by these emotionally damaged men, especially.
Have you seen, like, there's this great video online, I'll have to see if I can find it, but it's like all of these like this incredibly diverse, beautiful group of women sitting at a table in their suits, and they're like running. It's like as if they were all running the countries in the world, and they have nothing to talk about because they've already solved all the issues. Like, they're like, how's peace in your country? Well, that's not actually a problem.
That.
How are you doing with water? Oh, we've got plenty of clean water. And how's the food over there? Our children have food. It's not an issue. And it's just like, I hate to say that. And listen, there are great men in the world. My husband's one of them. There are many, many great men in the world. It's just, I think when I think about the workplace, I don't think of better men versus women. I think that's where it gets, like, I love to joke about it and joke about that video. It's not even that. I think when we think about men and women in the workplace, the most startling thing for me that I think people don't recognize is, like, one of us can have babies and one of us can't, which means that our biological needs and hormone needs are clearly different. So supporting us differently is actually equitable, right? It's not better or more or women deserve more or whatever. It's like, duh.
Yeah.
When you can start making babies, we'll give you menopause care. Like, when you go through menopause, you'll get that. Right?
Menopause is way different.
Well, but there's low T, right? Like, a lot of these companies offer that. And so it's just inane to me when I have these conversations, especially with women leaders that are looking to put these solutions in. And their question is always, well, how do we bring something in that's just for women that's not also for men? And I'm like,
because
it's just the face. I'm like,
I know. Do you look at it like,
did your husband have a baby? Does he go through menopause?
Did he try not to get pregnant, and then try to get pregnant, and then maybe breastfeed, and then, you know, raise a toddler without getting any sleep and go to work and then go through perimenopause and menopause? Yes. Just call me when that happens.
We'll support them all.
But don't hold your breath.
Here.
No.
Oh, goodness.
No. I know.
Oh, man.
All right, my friends, we're not going to solve all the world.
No, but we're going to try.
We're off to a good start.
Yeah. We are.
I feel like we solved a lot tonight.
We
did.
We
could talk to you forever.
Really, yes.
So
I know. I feel bad. I feel like you were like rapping, and then here I keep going with shit. No. Christine's like, okay, I want to get back to my family. Can we stop talking about this nonsense now?
When will we see you again? Are you going to be at the Menopause Society meeting in October?
I don't know. I think I'm going to try. I don't know. You're going to see me whenever you want to see me. I mean, you just send an invitation and I'm there, or I'll send you here.
Or We'll come.
I will be. You can come see the crabs in Salem.
Yeah.
And the witches and the crabs.
The witches.
We're a really special place.
Don't forget to let me know if you're ever coming over this side of the country, so I don't miss you if you're here.
I'd rather meet you in Ireland.
Oh, me too.
Aoife won't take anybody to Ireland. We already asked.
Yeah, we tried to ask. Yeah. Just
So,
like
girls,
sorry,
you
bitches.
see the way I pack. I mean, I'm not fitting anyone in that suitcase.
Listen, you can wrap me up in your water bottle warmer.
I just want to follow you. I don't want to be packed in your shit.
Oh, you can totally come to Ireland. I would bring you all to Ireland. Absolutely.
I'm coming. That's an invitation to me.
Tour.
She knows how to do it. Like, I don't know what to do in Ireland. Gotta find them.
I've been twice.
Smash or something. I don't even know what I do there. Look at clips.
Oh no, there's a lot to do there. There's a lot. Yeah, I need her too.
I would need a tour guide.
Okay, so Dusty Muffins
Tour Ireland.
wants a. And you need a red-haired girl named Kacy, even though she's Jewish and not Irish.
We'll take it. We don't discriminate. We
Start
love
planning. We'll start planning.
I'm in.
All righty, my friends.
Thanks,
Thanks so much, Kacy.
Yes, you have a good one. It was so great seeing you. Thank you. And we'll you let us know when you want us on. We'll be on.